Today I talk about not being a commodity and showcasing what makes you uniquely valuable. Welcome to episode number 36 of the Luebbers journey. So I spent a lot of today with a good friend of mine mapping out a pivot in his business. And a lot of the motivation for the pivot and the theory behind it was based on decommoditizing what he did. And I'll explain how I've done this and how this is a really important principle in marketing in general. And even, marketing is just sort of a buzzword in human communication, particularly nonverbal. I don't mean that exclusively in the verbal sense. So the context in which I'm talking about it, in which I dealt with it today, is the business model was a web development firm, and we focused on actually changing the value proposition based on his fundamental skill set and what makes him uniquely valuable. And we've now branded him as the millennial impact strategist. And he just smiled. And what this does is it does change the fundamental value proposition, and you can use this principle of highlighting uniqueness, even if you don't change the value proposition that your business or you as an individual offer, what makes you uniquely valuable. But in this case, we did change the value proposition. But the idea that it's predicated on is when you explain what you do, when you reach out to somebody with a business proposition, when you meet somebody in person, whenever you communicate with people about what you do, one of two things happen. It's really this simple. You either get placed into a box with other people, you get pigeonholed as this person is a marketer or a web developer or an entrepreneur. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it means you have to fight against that in order to, and I talked about this in an early video, you have to fight against that in order to prove your uniqueness. You have to make them understand, oh, but he's a web developer that does this. He just has really, really awesome designs, and that makes him unique. You have to fight back from that. Whereas you can actually, when you get this uniqueness right, you can, from the get-go, create that impression of this is unique, this is different, this is valuable. That's why I've termed myself the legacy builder and describe my business model as a legacy building agency. And not only is that fundamentally what we try to do, so it did change our value proposition, but it also gets people, particularly our target audience, I've gotten incredible responses to it, to say, what is that? How do you do that? Tell me more about that. Even leading into business opportunities. Since I've branded the company and made the pivot to a legacy building agency, demand and interest has just skyrocketed without even trying. I haven't really been actively marketing the business, and I've generated a tremendous amount of interest. And that's the power of creating this uniqueness impact, this uniqueness effect right off of the bat. And I finally want to explain how this applies in general. So I talked about it in those examples in a pretty business-oriented context, and that's the context in which I learned it, or rather cemented it, I would say. I knew of its existence, because everybody knows the importance of uniqueness, but I learned this specific implementation of it. But it really isn't just business. It really applies to life. And there's so many ways to do this. When you first meet somebody, for example, you can communicate in a way that makes you fundamentally unique, even if that's as subtle as your vocal inflection, your body language, maybe you wear a certain item that sparks people's interest, or you can communicate in a way that is, in your shell, or however you want to term it, something they've seen before, something that they can say, oh, he's one of these people, something that allows them to more easily pigeonhole or stereotype you. And again, that's not a bad thing. That happens to most people. But what you can do is consciously engineer first impressions and descriptions of yourself, particularly nonverbal descriptions, meaning your body language or the way you talk, the way your vocal fluctuation, the nonverbal portion of it, and that's sort of verbal, but you get the point. And when you do this, you can, from the get-go, get people to go, this person is different, this person is unique, this is really interesting, and you can build curiosity and intrigue and get them to know more about you. This is such a fundamentally important principle, and it all comes down to making sure that you are not a commodity. Because no human being is a commodity. No human being can be placed into a box in actuality and said to be and be described as the same as somebody else. It doesn't happen. People pigeonhole others simply because they can't handle the tremendous amount of information, and they have to naturally categorize things. It's just what we do. But it's not accurate. Nobody's a commodity. Everybody is uniquely valuable. And often, the best thing to do is consciously portray that from the get-go by describing what you do or acting, holding yourself in a way that demonstrates your unique value and gets people curious in you and gets people to respect you more and appreciate what makes you uniquely valuable. This has been a tremendously impactful concept in my life and my business and in helping clients grow their businesses. And so it's something that I thought would be incredibly valuable to share today. Let me know if you have experiences where you said something, maybe a bizarre description. What up?
I'm the guy who's talking about. This guy's the man. The legacy builder.
Let me know if you have experiences of describing yourself in a weird way or something happening. Often if you meet somebody in bizarre circumstances or when you're in a really fun mood, you tend to be more memorable. If you have any experiences of just coming off as so unique, or even meeting somebody who just makes you go, that's incredibly unique, and builds curiosity and intrigue. I love hearing about these types of experiences and trying to consciously engineer them. I hope you found this fascinating, and this is actually a very actionable, useful video, something you could take home and implement today. And so I hope you found a lot of value, and we'll talk tomorrow.